What is the shape of your life? The sower and the seeds is one of the best known parables of the New Testament and leads us to that very question. Welcome to Word for the Week, Season 3, Episode 18. Join us as we discuss the three defining factors of the sower and the seed and how they shape our lives. Matthew 13:1 through 23. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the lake. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat in it while all the people stood on the shore. Then he told them many things in parables, saying, A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places, where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly because the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. Still other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Whoever has ears, let them hear. Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in their heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time, and when trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. The seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. But the seed falling on good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. Okay, I see a lot about growth and quality of life, but I'm not sure what you mean about the shape, how they shape our life.
Well, fair enough, and this is an endeavor to simplify and shape, so maybe I've made it more difficult by trying to simplify, but This is how we're going.
All right.
There was an approach to this parable that struck me that it just kept percolating all last week, and as we came into this week, I thought, well, I'm just going to run with it. So for better or worse, here we go. But I'll give you this small hint.
Okay.
The whole vision of it deals with a basic geometric form.
Well, I'm going to take a leap here, but...
Take a leap, my dear.
Since the introduction mentioned three defining factors, I'm going to guess a triangle.
Well, and you would be right. We're talking about triangle shape. And the thing is triangles aren't all just one shape, right? Depending on what you do at the sides, you can make different shapes. And that's kind of where we are. But before we do, this is a warm-up for you. I know for a fact you were a geometric or geometry whiz way back in school when you were going there. So I'm going to hit you with a couple of triangle terms and see how we do, okay?
Okay.
And we're going to warn people right now, like you say, we have a fan outside. There's a wren who refuses to go away.
Yes.
So we're going to take his chirps as yes and no's through the whole thing. But anyway, so here we go. What is a triangle that is called an equilateral triangle?
Oh. Has equal sides.
Okay.
3 equal sides.
3 equal sides. One a little bit more challenging. What is a triangle that is called an isosceles triangle?
It has 2 equal sides.
All right. And here's one I don't even remember from school. Maybe you do. A triangle called a scalene triangle.
I'm going to guess that all the sides are different. I don't remember that name, but all the sides are different.
Scale comes into it, so you're right. And not equal sides, so that's where we are.
Okay. So if the parable of the sower and the seeds can be understood as a triangle, our lives can take on different shapes.
Yes. Right.
So now the obvious question is, how is this parable a triangle?
Yeah, how does it work as triangle? Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, the triangle has the 3 lines, And Jesus used three components that we can visualize
Okay.
as lines here. So try and stay with me as it comes out of the head of Kevin.
Okay.
Imagine a
Head of
triangle. Yeah, it's scary just thinking of it. And we'll give a name to each line of the triangle. We'll call
Okay.
one seed.
Okay.
We'll call the other soil, and the third one situation.
I see where you're going. Okay.
Seed, soil, situation. And all these lines can interact with each other, hence shapes. And Jesus does this by giving four variations. There's four versions of the three lines.
Okay.
And so, hence, we end up with different shapes. And these different shapes are the different shapes of our life, or ultimately, the different shapes of our spiritual eternity.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. Describe these lines a little bit more.
Okay, let's consider the first line. We'll call it, as we said, the seed, or the seeds
right.
line. That's sower and the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And I might say, too, the sower is connected. He's the agent of spreading the seed, so he's part of the seed line. We'll make it the base of our triangle. This is the one line, and if we're looking for an interpretation, as you said, as you went into the interpretation of the story, the seeds are, quote, the message of the kingdom. That's what Jesus calls them. And this is the one line that is a constant. This is the line, we'll just say that's the descriptor for it. It's a
As
constant.
in seeds don't change.
As in the seeds don't change.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting because I was looking into agriculture in the research too. And one thing it said, in producing a yield, a crop, the quality of the seed was a factor. But in the parable, Jesus doesn't make quality. It is either a seed or it's not a seed. It's the quality that is the message of the kingdom, or it's not the message of the kingdom. What he's doing here is he's set up a constant. This doesn't change. Which is important because the other two lines are not constants. We see as we go into the parable that those are variables. And so if the seed is wasted or the seed is put to use and it grows, it comes down to those two lines, not the quality of the seed.
Okay, so dealing with how people react to God, whether it be through a speaker, a teacher, or a preacher, it puts the responsibility on the hearer, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. As long as the message is a genuine message,
Right,
it's truly scriptural. It's not the messenger then who is in question, according to this parable. It's not the messenger, it's the one receiving or hearing. And there's a lot to share when we talk about these three defining lines. So today, we're going to concentrate on just one of the variable lines, and we'll cover the other one more on Sunday, on the Sunday
Okay,
follow-up.
that sounds good. Before we dive into our line for today, how about a brief description of the whole triangle?
Right, because we do need
Yeah.
a context for how this
Yeah.
works. So, like we said, the seed we're using is our baseline in a triangle.
Right.
The constant. Everything else is the variable. The line we're calling soil, it represents the human condition. And I think here, we say the heart, sometimes in the parable. I think it's beyond that. I think it's the heart. It's the mind. It is the will or the soul. It's the whole nature of the person. And if I were to use a one-word descriptor for this line, I would call it option. And I call it option for this reason. It's not that we can change ourselves if we are the soil. It's not that we can change ourselves. But God does give us the option to let Him, who is the master gardener, to work on us or not work on us.
Right.
We're given that gift of freedom there. The line we focus on today, we're calling situation. And if I were to use a word to describe this one, I would use the word inevitable.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this, but go ahead and explain why your word is inevitable.
Okay, and the only reason you understand is because you've lived with me for 40 years and almost have a line, a beat on how this mind works.
Almost.
Almost. But me too sometimes. But let's just look at it because like we say, a parable which is another word and a slightly different concept than Hebrew, by the way, is to take something commonly known and put it alongside something that not so well known, like something in nature to explain a spiritual truth. That's a little different.
Right.
So we're looking at the metaphors to start with that give us the analogy. So the first in dealing with this, I say inevitable, because if you look at the situations that are set up here, the first one about the grass getting eaten up,
Right.
Pretty common knowledge to this day. All you have to do is go out, put grass seed out uncovered and see how long it takes the birds to eat it.
Right.
Inevitable.
Right.
Another one, and I've learned this one more from you because you're the master in potted plants, but you'd point out when something was root bound, put a root bound potted plant outside. You can pretty well count. In the summer around here, it's toast. It's literally, it's going to wither.
Right.
We live in Indiana here, and ash trees are the great nemesis. We don't go out in the wind in the forest.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is the roots, right? If
Right.
the roots don't hold, these trees are falling over.
Yeah. Last week we just had our second roof put on because another tree fell on our house.
Yeah, consider that. We lived in houses. When I was a kid, the thought of a tree falling in a house was, pretty weird. But now,
And the amazing thing, they look good on the outside. Even some of them, when they cut them, they're great wood in the inside, but they just don't have roots.
There's no roots in there, and if it falls in your house, it's a crushing experience.
Oh,
And expensive.
crushing to the wallet, too.
Yeah, that's true. But the
Oh,
thing
goodness.
here is that we're getting the idea. We're looking at situations that are inevitabilities.
Right.
And if we see these things not as things we may or may not happen, but we see them as inevitable, it puts a whole nuance in understanding the parable.
Yeah, I can see that. It's not about hoping those trials don't come to you, because they will come to everybody.
In some form.
But the question is, what kind of soil are you when they do come?
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, where Jesus is going.
Yeah.
So he illustrates two great two great determining factors, two great lines that in turn determine what kind of life we have.
Right.
So his illustration sets up our lives through 4 versions of soil, and then 4 versions of situations, basically, is what we're looking at.
All right. The first situation is the seeds are sown and the birds devour the seeds, like we were.
Yeah, like the wren out there.
Yeah, that's the run. Jesus interprets that as Satan snatching the message of the kingdom from the heart.
Yeah, and it's a great use of words. Here I get back into, we commonly go back in and see, well, when it was in the original Greek, what exactly was the word? Right. And I got a kick out of this one because in the metaphor it says the birds down ate.
Down ate.
Down ate the seeds. And we would say it as they ate it up.
Right.
So interesting.
Right.
And then when you look at the what Satan does, the word isn't that he devours, but in fact that he snatches. And it's very fitting if you're a birder, so I'll let you describe it as how does a bird eat seed?
Really quickly. I mean, you can't even see their head bopping up and down. They just, it's faster than your eye can.
Can whatever they're eating. I mean, it's like a stab, isn't it? And that's the description of Satan. The difference between simply taking something and snatching it is a factor of speed.
Yeah.
Snatching is incredibly fast, no matter if you're a bird or a person, whoever's doing it. And we were discussing earlier about this whole idea of people who got some sense, some consideration of what God was trying to tell them. Basically, a seed was laid on them. They entertain it for just a minute, and then it seems to be gone. And one pattern we found that, ulterior motive. If somebody is really kind of not there for the right reason, a lot of times Satan's boom, it's gone.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, the second situation is the heat of the sun scorching poorly rooted plant.
Right.
And Jesus translate that as I can't talk today. The trouble's coming, and the believer quickly falling away.
Yeah, and that's a different thing, isn't it? As we said, ulterior motive. The first one is the seed almost bounces off the person. This one here, it has embedded itself,
Right.
and everything's looking pretty good at first. So I thought I'd ask you. We were talking back and forth, and you had a great story, a personal experience with this. I thought I'd let you share that one.
Well, back when I was working at the college up in Canada, I
Right.
had this acquaintance, a friend.
Was she a work colleague?
Yeah,
Okay.
she was a workaholic. She worked in the computer center, and I used to have to bring her over stuff. And she was into Wiccan, but it wasn't that she was solidly a member. It was just something she was entertaining,
The
and
latest philosophy du jour.
right. And she had all these cute little anecdotes and stuff. But anyway, I was mentioning that I was going to this revival meeting, and she wanted to go. And
Right.
so, of course, I, jumped on that. And she was all excited, and she loved it. She was just thinking it was just wonderful. And a couple of days later, I had a chance to work with her again, and I said, "So, what did you think?" And she said, "Oh, it was great." And I could tell by that what that meant was it was just another one of those soup du jour things that,
Right.
to entertain her mind, and she was seeking herself, and it was just one other tool that she was, using, but it wasn't anything special to her, more special than any of the other
Anything.
things she tried.
How long did she?
I don't even think maybe a week and a half, at the moment.
Week and a half,
and she was
Christian.
so excited,
Yeah.
so it's like,
That's it. I think the older we get to, time is the great determinant.
yeah, I was crushed.
Yeah. Well, in those first, look at this person.
I was a
all
newer
excited.
Christian myself, so I was just, I was just so,
And to the point now, I get suspicious if anybody's
yeah,
too over
sad.
the top
It's
at
sad,
first.
but
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
But it makes sense when you look at how things grow. You don't
They're not
plant something
boom.
and then boom, the
Right.
next day you have blossoms. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And we might think then, why isn't this part of the soil? Like you were saying, this was this type of person. That she probably started a million things and never finished. This seems to be a thing of the person. But I think what Jesus is getting at here is the inevitability of the principle in the spiritual life, as in it is a guaranteed thing. If you don't develop roots, if you don't go deep, it's not a question of if you will fall away. It's a question of when.
Yeah.
And like you say,
Yeah.
a week and a half,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's not all that uncommon. So.
Yeah. That was that. Anyway, the third situation is the seeds that fall among the thorns. And I like the actual Greek term for this, point flowers.
Yeah, point flowers.
It makes me think of something that's beautiful even though it's lethal.
Yeah, and I can vouch for that. As I was reading this, I was thinking of the cane that it was cutting that's growing up all around here.
Yeah.
Boy, that stuff, that really gave me a going over when you get those thorns in your back.
Yeah, right.
But it's an apt description. It's something that can appear beautiful, like you say. Another interesting word, since we're kicking around Greek terms and all of that, is what choke means in reference to our parable. Is it means to be surrounded by something and then suffocated.
Yeah. And I say the original Greek uses two powerful terms of what chokes the new believer.
Right.
One being negative and the other being positive.
Right, yeah,
So-
and they're both timeless.
Yeah.
Like you say, the actual translation for the first is the anxieties of life.
Right.
And has the world ever been more filled with anxiety than it is now? So no matter what age or what culture anxiety is pretty common. It's inevitable.
Right.
So there's your negative. Like you say, on the positive side, the actual wording is probably better. The seduction of riches.
Yeah.
So there you have the allure, the positive side, and these are things that happen to everyone at some degree at some point in life. Nobody gets through life without anxieties of some type, some worries. And everyone loves a comfortable life.
Sure.
And if possible, luxurious.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
we were talking about the great luxury we have in our life. We have 2 luxury cars. We've got our 2003 Taurus, yeah,
2004
Ford
Impala.
Impala. Luxury cars, man. Can't do better.
They're still running.
They're still running. That's
and we're
a
not
luxury.
paying a payment.
Right. That's a luxury. But the whole thing of these things, like we say, they're inevitable. So we're all facing them. But if they're allowed to get the upper hand, what Jesus says in here is really kind of sobering, because the implication here and the statement is, no matter how genuine your faith may seem or how noble your intentions, that if these things get the upper hand, your life will be, quoting Jesus, unfruitful.
That's scary. That's just scary.
Yeah.
Okay, now, then we have the last situation, the good
Right.
soil, which yields a big harvest.
A great harvest.
Great harvest.
And I find this is really interesting. This is the genius of Jesus, as I may say on this, is that this element in the parable is both a situation and a soil.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't even change it in the interpretation, which means that when we're talking about good soil, which by the word used actually is ideal in ideal land is actually
Okay.
in it. But it means it's both an option and an inevitability. It's both things, a firm promise and something in which we have an accountability.
Here's what I found is interesting. Jesus is speaking long before the Green Revolution,
Right.
which we take for granted in our time. We've developed ways of squeezing the maximum harvest out of the soil.
Right.
And in Jesus' time, to have a multiplication from the seeds of only 1 to 10 was a very good harvest.
Yeah, it's great.
And 1 to 15 would be exceptional. But
Right.
Jesus starts at 1 to 30, twice the best harvest, and all the way to 1 to 100, which is unthinkable in human terms. I mean, especially in the times Jesus was speaking.
Yeah, you have to wonder, as the listeners are hearing this,
They must have just had their mouths,
Well,
just hanging down.
whoever saw a harvest like that, right?
Right,
That's just crazy.
right.
But I think you hit the point in this. You're bringing up a good point in that, first, if we're honestly open to God, it's inevitable that there will be a fruitful life. There will be a harvest. And that's a biggie when you think of sometimes how Christians, we can trudge along and it seems that nothing is happening.
Yeah.
God says, no, it will be fruitful. And then secondly, beyond that, he says, not only will it be fruitful, it will be in ways or at a level that we just couldn't even imagine. And maybe in this life, we'll never know.
That's right. It might not be until we get to heaven.
Right.
Wow. That gives me a lot to chew on. Well,
Yep.
let me offer my bottom line on this
Bottom line.
incredible parable as we've covered it so far. First, it illustrates 3 important factors that shape our lives.
Right.
Second, the message of God's kingdom is a constant source of truth. Third, God's given us the gift and responsibility of choice in what kind of soil we are. And lastly, trying situations are inevitable. We all face them, and the question is, how will we face them?
Right. And as you said, that's just the first installment on
Right.
this parable. But yeah, kudos. Very good summary going on.
All right. That's the defining line of situation. And Sunday follow-up, we will do the nature of the soil, and we look forward to that. For now, we leave you with the Canaan Praise Team singing Before the Throne of God Above. And enjoy, and until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.
Be blessed.
Be blessed.
And bye.
Bye.
name is love. Whoever lives and pleads for me. My name is graven on his hands. My name is written on his heart. I know that while in heaven he stands, no tongue can bid me thence depart. No tongue can bid me thence depart. When Satan tempts me to despair and tells me of the guilt within, up would I look and see him there, who made an end to all my sin. Because the sinless Savior died, my sinful soul is counted free. For God the just is satisfied to look on him and pardon me, to look on him and pardon me. Beholding there the risen Lamb, my perfect, spotless righteousness, the great unchangeable I am, the King of glory and of praise. One with himself I cannot die, my soul is purchased by his blood. My life is hid with Christ on high, with Christ my Savior and my God. One with himself I cannot die, my soul is purchased by his blood. My life is hid with Christ on high, with Christ my Savior and my God. With Christ my Savior and my God, with Christ my Savior and my
You can watch Word for the Week at canancommunity.org. You can also catch our live stream on Canaan Community's Facebook, YouTube, or your favorite podcast app.